If you're listening to this episode on the day it airs, then happy Halloween! Halloween is one of my favorite holidays. I've got Hocus Pocus on repeat, 1 and 2, by the way, pumpkin spice lattes flowing, and I'm soaking in the beautiful weather before things turn very cold here in Austin. While there's a lot of good to focus on during Halloween, I want to share something very scary with you. In fact, in this episode, I'm sharing the spooky reality of millennials and money with some statistics that will truly turn your stomach. Welcome to the City Girl Savings Podcast. I'm Raya Reeves, founder and finance coach of City Girl Savings. I turned my life around with budgeting many years ago, and now I'm on a mission to help others do the same. I fully believe that you can enjoy your life on a budget, and this weekly show will focus on the intersection of money and the city girl lifestyle. Join me every week along with some special guests as I share my experiences, advice, and guidance on navigating life and money as an experience-loving millennial. So a couple of months ago, I read an article from CNBC about millennials and money, and it blew my mind. I'll be sure to link to it in the show notes so you can read it for yourself. I'm going to share some of the statistics and findings of the article, along with ways that can hopefully help turn things around. So let's dive in. First, spooky statistic. Nearly 40% of young adults said they spend more of their money on experiences than necessities like paying bills, in part because they want to share it on social media. Holy cow. As spooky as this is, I was definitely part of the 40% in my early 20s. Instagram and Facebook weren't as big as they are now, so I wasn't spending to share it, but I was spending because my priorities were totally in the wrong place. Nowadays, social media is making it easier and easier to compare our situation to others. It's easy to forget that people only share what they want you to see. So breaking the competition mindset, breaking the envy and jealousy mindset, and focusing on your own things is going to be critical to avoid that desire to overspend or to spend and share to make yourself feel better. Listen to episode 31, How I Combat the Competition Mindset, for some tips on how to do that. Just one more thought about this. What value does sharing a false reality really bring? What if someone off the street spotted you? What if your bank account balances got leaked? I'm sure that would never happen, but what if it did? Would it stop you from faking the funk? Really think about what matters to you, and if you do feel the need to spend your money so that you can share it for other people to see, ask yourself why. Okay, next spooky statistic. As of May 2022, 58% of Americans, so roughly 150 million adults, live paycheck to paycheck. And of those earning $250,000 or more, 30% are living paycheck to paycheck. So with inflation still near 40-year highs, it's not surprising to me that so many people are living paycheck to paycheck. I remember reading a past study that said only about 30% of U.S. households leverage a budget. So this means that nearly 70% of households are just winging it with their money. That corresponds with a high paycheck to paycheck rate. Also, seeing that of those who are making $250,000 or more in a year, 30% of them are living paycheck to paycheck proves that it's not about the money you make. It's about what you do with it. Oftentimes, when people make more, they spend more. Lifestyle creep is real and it can cost you big time. When my clients try to navigate for rising costs of goods, my first recommendation is always to reduce the discretionary spending. Now, I will always advocate for keeping discretionary spending in a person's budget. I truly believe that Giving yourself a little bit to enjoy life with is the recipe for success and consistency with a budget, but this is usually the first place to reduce when extra income needs to be allocated elsewhere. So if you are struggling with the paycheck to paycheck lifestyle, check for a few things. Can you reduce any discretionary spending? Can you put less into savings to ensure that your main monthly responsibilities are covered? Can you find ways to bring in more money and put that money to debt or savings? Now, bringing in more money doesn't have to be a consistent thing. You can sell stuff around the house to bring in extra cash or do one-off jobs temporarily to make extra money. My point is, get to a place where you can keep your spending in check or increase your income to help you break that paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. Next spooky statistic. A quarter, so 25% of U.S. adults ages 25 to 34 resided in a multi-generational family household in 2021. This is up from 9% in 1971. This number goes up for those in that age group who don't have college degrees. So inflation isn't just hitting gas and groceries, but homes and apartments too. With home prices rising much faster than salaries, people are forced to rent or move back home with their parents. Now, as I explained in episode 1, at 24, when my dad died, I moved back home to Texas after living by myself in Los Angeles. It wasn't a financial choice to move, but it did end up helping me out financially in a big way. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with having to move back home to save or get ahead financially. However, you must be taking advantage of the opportunity. Don't just move back home and then end up spending all that should be saved. That is what's going to keep you staying there much longer than you want. As soon as you move back home, or as soon as you can, get a budget in place. After your bills and expenses are covered, what do you have left? How can you take advantage of the situation you're in? That should be the main priority when you're living back at home. Now, continuing on with the statistic of those living at home, for those who have moved out and live on their own, 32% of them said as much as half of their monthly income goes to rent or their mortgage. Now, a good percent to strive for when it comes to your rent or mortgage is 30 to 35% of your income. Ideally, you don't want your rent or mortgage payment to exceed that 30 to 35% number. Easier said than done, I know, especially right now. But if you are in that 50% range, focus on bringing in more money. Living off 50% of your income does not leave you much room for getting ahead or tackling goals like savings and paying off debt. Are you tired of wondering which moves to make next with your money? Do you need some guidance on whether to pay off debt, save, or focus on something else? Get my free Money Moves packet today and start making impactful money moves instantly. Go to citygirlsavings.com/moves to download your Money Moves packet now. Okay, final spooky statistic. 23% of American households have no emergency savings at all, while 28% have some savings, but not enough to cover 3 months of expenses. So, over half of the American households are unable to cover an emergency if it costs more than 3 months of their expenses, or if it costs anything at all. Now, I'm sure we've all heard the ideal emergency fund amount is 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved. That's not always easy or possible, especially if debt payoff is a high priority. But to have nothing saved at all is a recipe for disaster. Seriously, it just takes one wrong move, one unexpected expense, one trip to the ER to just throw everything off. So if you have debt, I recommend getting $500 to $1,000 saved before aggressively paying it off. Now, the amount will vary depending on your situation. So $500 if you have minimal expenses and no kids or no one responsible for you, and $1,000 if you have more responsibilities to cover should something happen. Now, obviously, feel free to increase that number based on what you know may be coming up, but remember that you're spending a lot more in interest by keeping high interest debt around than you are by keeping your money in savings. It's crazy how our society is designed that way. The goal is to have something to spot you in case of emergency or unexpected expense, and then shift gears to paying down any high interest debt. Now, I recommend you keep your savings in a high-yield savings account or in an account that's not associated with your primary bank or checking account. So high-yield savings account, if you have never heard this term, be prepared to be blown away. It's basically a savings account with an online bank that offers much higher interest rates for your savings than traditional banks. Because these banks don't have any brick and mortar locations, they don't have as many expenses and therefore can put more money in their customers' accounts. So I personally leverage Synchrony and American Express Bank for my high yield savings, but Ally, Discover, Marcus Goldman Sachs, SoFi are all great options. Now, regardless of where your savings is, the goal is not to touch it anyways. So you may as well keep it in a high yield savings so you can earn as much interest as possible. But if that does not make you feel good, fine. Keep your savings somewhere where you're not so tempted to touch it or you don't have quick and easy access to it. As scary as these statistics may be, there are ways out. To wrap us up, focus on controlling your non-necessary spending. Get a budget plan in place. If you're living at home, take advantage of the situation and use the time at home to get ahead. Pay down your high interest debt and build an emergency fund based on your situation, preferably in a high yield savings account. I hope I didn't scare you too much this Halloween. I hope I gave you some things to think about and things to focus on. See you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to City Girl Savings today. I hope you feel empowered and inspired to master your money as you make your way to your dream life. Make sure you subscribe so you're the first to know when a new episode comes out. I truly value your thoughts and feedback, so please leave a review and let me know how this podcast has impacted you. Can't wait to chat soon and make it a great day.